Have you ever dreamed of flying? Of course you have. Who wouldn't want to soar like a bird or float like a cloud? Humans have always looked to the sky with wonder and a little bit of envy. More than 400 years before Leonardo da Vinci, the Greek mathematician and engineer Archytas of Tarentum built a mechanical bird that could fly. Well, sort of, across the globe. Others were coming up with their own ideas for how to conquer the heavens. Enter the era of precursor machines. The quest to invent the airplane had been going on for centuries before the Wright brothers came along. By the dawn of the 20th century, everything was in place for the first powered plane. The components were all emerging. A basic understanding of lift, new knowledge of wing shape, better engines and lighter materials. All that remained was someone to bring it together. And in a small bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, two brothers, curious, patient, and meticulous, were about to change everything. Join us next time as we delve into the story of Wilbert and Orville Wright and explore how they transformed cycling into flying in Chapter 2. Bicycle mechanics turned visionaries. Throughout the 1800s, inventors across Europe and America were tinkering with all sorts of flying machines, from helicopters to gliders to weird contraptions with flapping wings. One of the earliest pioneers of aviation was Sir George Cayley, an English engineer who is considered the father of modern aviation. In the early 1800s, he identified the four forces that govern flight: lift, drag, thrust, and weight. He also developed the first successful glider and made important contributions to the development of aeroplanes. He even built gliders large enough to carry children. Another pioneer was Otto Lilienthal, a German engineer who was nicknamed the Flying Man. He built a series of gliders that he used to make over 2,000 flights between 1891 and 1896. He developed techniques for soaring, turning, and gliding, which helped pave the way for the development of modern aircraft. He studied bird flight and developed gliders that could mimic their movements. He made over 2,000 glides, helping him and others understand how to control a craft in the air. But he also paid the price of progress. In 1896, he crashed while testing a new glider and suffered a severe head injury. He died soon after, leaving behind a legacy of innovation and a body of work that helped lay the foundation for modern aviation. As hot air balloons began dotting the landscape, let's see what was happening in the world of ballooning. The 18th century was a pivotal moment in history. The Industrial Revolution was changing the world, and exploration was expanding our horizons. Against this backdrop, the first hot air balloon was born on June 4, 1783, in a field outside of Hanovre, France. Joseph, Michel, and Jacques-Étienne Montgolfier released a balloon made of paper and fabric into the sky. It soared to nearly 3,000 feet and stayed airborne for 25 minutes. This groundbreaking invention marked a giant leap for humankind. Soon enough, news of the Montgolfier brothers' success spread like wildfire, captivating the imagination of scientists and adventurers alike. People clamored to witness this marvel of modern engineering, and the Montgolfiers weren't the only ones with their eyes on the prize. The competition was fierce, and soon enough, several daring souls had taken to the skies. One of the most notable among them was Jean-Francois Piloteur de Rosier, a French physicist and engineer. He was the first man to ride in the Montgolfier brothers' hot air balloon when it made its historic ascent. But he wasn't content with merely being a passenger. He yearned to steer the balloon's destiny. So with the help of two accomplices, he designed a cap that could be placed on top of the balloon to direct its path. On November 2nd, 1783, he and his passenger, Francois Laurent Darlans, took off from Paris. They drifted majestically over the city, becoming the first humans to experience the thrill of a hot air balloon ride. Their journey lasted 25 minutes, covering a distance of 5 miles, and when they finally landed, they were greeted with thunderous applause. The crowd marveled at their bravery and the sheer audacity of their feat. But unfortunately, the success of ballooning didn't last long. In 1784, Gianfranco Paleta di Rosia lost his life attempting a transatlantic flight in a hydrogen balloon. His disappearance cast a shadow over the future of aviation, serving as a grim reminder of the risks involved in pushing the boundaries of exploration. Nevertheless, Jacques Charles continued to study ballooning, and in 1787 flew the first hydrogen balloon alone across the English Channel. These early balloons had no engines, no way to steer, only a basket suspended below a large balloon filled with hot air or gas. Despite the risk, dozens of balloon flights followed. Some were experiments, some were fun, and some were downright reckless. One of the most famous early balloonists was Sophie Blanchard, a French woman who became the first female professional balloonist. She made over 250 balloon flights between 1793 and 1819, including a night flight and an aerial fireworks display. But her legacy is a bittersweet one, as she lost her life during a public fireworks display in 1819 when her hydrogen balloon caught fire mid-flight. Her death shocked the nation and put a damper on the enthusiasm for ballooning. Despite the setbacks, the spirit of adventure lived on. Scientists and explorers continued to push the boundaries of ballooning, using balloons to study weather, geography, and even the composition of the atmosphere. His wooden pigeon could be released and it would flutter along for a short distance before landing again. But its success inspired other thinkers to continue building flying machines. And by the late 15th century, Leonardo da Vinci was busy designing what may be the most famous flying machines ever. One of these inventions was an ornithopter, a machine that mimics a bird's wings to fly. In his journal, Da Vinci wrote that he wanted his ornithopter to be able to fly so that it could imitate the motion of a bird in its flight, flapping its wings like a bird. The human would flap the wings with their arms, creating lift with each stroke. When the machine was ready, Leonardo, dressed in elaborate clothes and boots, fastened himself inside the device and reportedly asked a friend to give him a run-up. Then he flung his arms back and forth, flapping the wings as hard as he could, but the machine didn't budge. But it was not just the ornithopter that Leonardo sketched. He drew and described more than a dozen other flying machines, including gliders, helicopters, and airships. He studied air resistance, lift, and airflow. He created detailed diagrams of different wing shapes and sizes. He even calculated the amount of force needed to keep an object aloft. He didn't use fancy math formulas. Instead, he estimated what he called vis viva, or living force, based on careful observations of the world around him. And though none of his machines ever flew, Da Vinci's writings and drawings laid conceptual foundations for aerial thinking. He was the first to recognize that flying was less a matter of imitating nature and more a matter of understanding the physics involved. For centuries, his ideas stayed hidden away in notebooks and archives. But today, they serve as a reminder that scientific progress is rarely a straight line. Sometimes it feels like we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Even genius doesn't always succeed right away. But we should take inspiration from those who dare to dream big and push the boundaries of what's possible. As Da Vinci himself wrote, "Once you have tasted flight, you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward." As early as 10,000 BCE, we started recording tales of flying creatures and gods. In Greek mythology, master craftsman Daedalus and his son Icarus fashioned wings from feathers and wax so they could escape King Minos. By some accounts, they attached feathers to their arms and legs and flapped their way into the sky. But Icarus got too close to the sun, melting the wax and feathers and plummeting into the sea. The story warned people not to get too ambitious, lest they end up like Icarus, but it also fueled our desire to fly. The ancient Indians wrote of Vimanas, flying chariots with flashing lights and propellers that came from the gods. They were sleek, fast and powerful, piloted by divine beings. The Chinese told stories of Luban, who crafted wooden birds that could glide through the air. Norse legends tell of gods riding winged horses, while in Africa, stories of flying humans and spirits abounded. These myths didn't teach us much about how to fly, but they did reveal our longing to do so. They captured the idea that something beyond our everyday existence waited for us up there in the sky. But for thousands of years, the dream of flight remained just that. A dream, no matter how many times we watched birds take to the sky or clouds drift across the horizon, we couldn't figure out how to join them until we learned to harness the power of the wind with hot air balloons. That was a start. But anyone who has ridden in a hot air balloon knows that there are limits to where and how far you can go when you're at the mercy of the wind. We yearned to reach new heights and travel new routes. We wanted to fly our own planes, not just ride the currents. To understand how that became possible, let's dive into this chapter of our mini-course, How Things Fly. Around the same time these myths were taking flight, humans started sketching potential solutions to the problem of flying. But Leonardo was not the only person pondering the secrets of the sky. While balloons were capturing the imagination of many, others were pursuing a different path to the skies, experimenting with machines that could soar through the air under their own power. These inventors were not household names, but their work was laying the groundwork for what was to come. Okay, the intro is over, so let's just get right into the credits. And now, back to the video. We tend to think of genius as people like us, schooled and credentialed, the kind of folks who earned degrees in aeronautical engineering. Sure, this fact seems random, but trust me, it matters. These kinds of questions excited them. This habit of relentless tinkering would lead them to even greater things, because these two weren't just bike mechanics. They were dreamers too. When they looked up at birds soaring through the sky, they didn't just admire the view, they wondered if humans could fly. Back in the 1900s, the idea of flying machines seemed outlandish. Most folks saw flight as fantasy or folly, and the experts were almost unanimous in their skepticism. Aviation was deemed impossible, a perpetual playground for dreamers and schemers alike. The truth is, they toiled in relative obscurity for many years. They didn't seek attention or recognition. They simply pursued their passion. This single-minded focus allowed them to make breakthroughs that changed the world. They were just two men with a passion for flight who dared to dream and work tirelessly to make their dreams a reality. Their story is a testament to the power of curiosity, the importance of hands-on learning, and the value of following one's passion. In a world that often values credentials and qualifications above all else, the Wright brothers serve as a reminder that genius can come to anyone who is willing to learn, explore, and persevere. Their story is an inspiration to us all, whether we are aspiring inventors ourselves or simply seeking to understand the brilliance of those who came before us. The Wright brothers' legacy continues to captivate and inspire. In 1903, they built the Flyer, their first powered aircraft. On December, Orville took to the sky for the first time, staying aloft for just 12 seconds. That historic flight marked the beginning of modern aviation, yet few people knew it at the time. The Wright brothers didn't become widely recognized until 1908, when they gave public demonstrations of their planes in Europe and the US, but by then they had already accomplished what they set out to do. They had proven that flight was possible. But Wilbur and Orville didn't care what people thought. They cared about solving problems. They had dared used to dream of flight, and with hard work and determination, they had made it a reality. Today, we live in a world shaped by the Wright brothers' invention. Airplanes connect us, transport us, and inspire us. But amidst the marvels of modern aviation, it's easy to forget the story behind it all. It wasn't fancy degrees or connections that propelled them forward. It was their insatiable curiosity. They turned a bike shop into a laboratory, conducting experiments and refining designs. Their approach was unconventional, yet highly effective. They weren't constrained by textbook theories or academic boundaries. Instead, they learned by doing, by tinkering, and by persevering through countless failures. This hands-on learning not only led to their success, but also laid the foundation for modern engineering. Their process of trial and error, meticulous record-keeping, and continuous improvement became cornerstones of engineering practice. And to solve this problem, they followed their curiosity. It also highlights the importance of curiosity and passion. They weren't driven by external pressures or expectations. They followed their own interests and allowed their curiosity to guide them. It was this intrinsic motivation that fueled their work and kept them going when faced with setbacks. They pored over papers written by European scientists and secretly conducted experiments in their shop. They designed new gadgets and tinkered with prototypes. Their peers might have labeled them madmen, but the Wrights knew they were onto something big. They asked, what if? What if we attach wings to a machine? What if we create a propeller that mimics a bird's wings? Remember, they were working in the dark, pursuing a dream that most people dismissed. They wanted to understand how lift worked, how planes balanced, and how they could maneuver in the air. Then they started experimenting with engines, trying different types, fuels, and power sources. They wanted to find something reliable, lightweight, and powerful enough to lift a plane. All the while, they kept meticulous records, documenting their successes and failures in detail. They collected data, analyzed results, and refined their techniques, and slowly but surely, they made progress. They designed and built a wind tunnel in their shop to test wing designs. They traveled to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, to test their gliders in the wind and sand. They experimented with different materials, lighter and stronger alloys and fabrics to build their planes, and all the while, they kept learning, kept growing, kept pushing forward, but they didn't despair. They dove deeper into their research, poring over books, visiting mentors, and testing theories. They toiled for years, sometimes going months without answers. But they stuck with it, and eventually, they got somewhere. What if we build an engine powerful enough to lift us off the ground? These questions obsessed them, and when they turned to answering them, they didn't stop until they found solutions. The result was nothing less than flight. Theirs was not your typical bike shop. You see, Wilbur and Orville were mechanics, and they took pride in their craft. They inspected every part, oiled every chain and spoke, and tuned every brake. They also raced bikes, repaired customers' bikes, and tinkered with their own designs. The point being, they spent a lot of time around bikes, and this experience would one day change the world. But life isn't fair. Genius comes to some in the middle of nowhere, in the rust of machine shops, or the trunks of sedans, or even in a bicycle store. Our story starts right there in a bicycle store, in Dayton, Ohio. They didn't attend college, nor did they possess any fancy credentials. But they did have something much better. Curiosity. They'd grown up surrounded by books and tools in the home of Bishop Milton Wright, and their mother, Susan, had passed on her mechanical skills, fixing everything from clocks to farm equipment. So while they lacked degrees, they had dreams, and a workshop filled with possibility, and those proved far more valuable than any qualification. Back in the late 19th century, Wilbur and Orville Wright owned a bicycle repair shop. See, they didn't just fix bikes, they pondered them. Why do bikes stay upright? How do brakes work best? What makes some bikes faster than others? Now, this doesn't mean the brothers were book smart. Far from it. They dreamed of flight, but they knew the odds. They faced obstacles. Lots of them. Thousands, actually. First, they built gliders, trying different wing shapes, sizes, and designs. Despite their tireless work, the Wright brothers didn't become famous overnight. Their success wasn't due to luck, privilege, or circumstances. It came from their dedication, their passion, and their relentless pursuit of knowledge. But the story of the Wright brothers teaches us more than just the value of hands-on learning. In conclusion, the Wright brothers were not super geniuses. They didn't possess any special talents or advantages. The Wright Flyer may have made the first flight in 1903, but within weeks, word had spread that the barrier of gravity had been broken. And soon after, hundreds of people around the world claimed to have achieved flight themselves, some with more success than others. This is air power. First flight, fierce skeptics. Flight didn't remain a Wright family secret for long. In the early 1900s, a Brazilian-born Parisian named Alberto Santos Dumont enchanted crowds by flying dirigibles above the Eiffel Tower. But it was his 1906 flight of the ungainly 14 bis, a powered boxy biplane, that truly electrified Europe. That changed when public demonstrations finally wowed crowds in 1908. The battlefield was about to extend into the heavens. At the same time, engineer and motorcycle designer Glenn Curtiss began making his own machines, lighter and faster than the Wright's flyers. Garros was flying a modified Neoport when he spotted a German plane. It was an intense moment. Both pilots knew they were on the cusp of history. Garros fired, hitting the other plane, which then crashed. It was a pivotal moment, marking the transition from planes as mere observers to active combatants. But this confrontation was more than just a clash in the skies. It was a turning point in the perception of aerial warfare. Take, for instance, the Sopwith Camel, famed for its distinctive hump-like fuselage housing the Lewis guns. New designs, improvements, and innovations became the norm. It was a relentless race for supremacy in the skies. The skies were no longer just a playground for daredevils. They were a battleground for nations. The First World War had shown just how quickly aviation could evolve, driven by the urgent needs and relentless pace of modern warfare. Cheers echoing across the airfield as a lone plane touched down, bringing to a close a solo flight across the Atlantic that had captivated the world, and visionaries working tirelessly to push the envelope. Now it's your turn to tell us which aircraft marked a significant moment for you. Did the Wright Flyer spark your interest? How about the Spirit of St. Louis? Or maybe one of the legendary planes of World War I? Share your thoughts below. Your stories matter. They add a vital chapter to the rich narrative of aviation. So don't hold back. Let's keep this conversation soaring. At the controls sat a young pilot, barely 25, who had just rewritten the rules of flight. His name was Charles Lindbergh, and his achievement was nothing short of spectacular. In his single-engine plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, he'd covered over 3,300 miles, non-stop. It was a feat that had seemed almost impossible, and yet he'd done it in just over 33 hours. This wasn't just a flight, it was a triumph of engineering, courage, and human ambition. But that doesn't mean the sky was the limit. There was still plenty of room for growth. And as the world rebuilt after the Great War, aviation's journey was far from over. But who was winning this aerial duel? Well, it's hard to say. Each side had its triumphs and setbacks. The feverish pace of production eased, but the lessons learned during the war years remained. Safety, reliability, and adaptability were no longer buzzwords. They were necessities. But this wasn't a time for consolidation. No, this was a time for pushing boundaries. Commercial aviation was on the horizon, and with it, the promise of shrinking the world. New technologies, innovative tactics, and the skill of the pilots all played a part. It wasn't until the entry of the United States into the war that the balance tipped decisively. The US brought with them new aircraft and a surge of fresh-faced pilots eager to make their mark. Planes like the Spad got a formidable reputation, but it wasn't just about the aircraft. It was about the sheer numbers. The influx of American resources allowed the Allies to flood the battlefields with more planes, overwhelming the Germans and shifting the tide of the war. Or the equally iconic Bristol fighter, with its twin-engine design and deadly machine guns. These planes played a critical role, offering a versatile platform for everything from reconnaissance to fighting off attacks by German U-boats. Soon, militaries realized they needed specialized aircraft and crews to counter these airborne threats. Legal battles erupted. Who invented what? Who owned the patent on flight? Rivalry slowed American innovation but couldn't stop it. These aircraft weren't sleek fighters, but they were effective. The Fokker D-7 was a formidable fighter, especially once its synchronized guns were able to fire right through the plane's nose. With its powerful engine and keen maneuverability, the Fokker was a force to be reckoned with. As the war dragged on and both sides amassed more aircraft, the need for skilled pilots became crucial. Fighter pilots like the Red Baron were celebrated as national heroes, their daring feats and victories boosting morale on the ground. The introduction of these dedicated combat aircraft signaled a new era in warfare. It was an era where the element of surprise was fading, replaced by a calculated dance of attack and defense. They might not have had the agility of later planes, but they were sturdy and reliable. This was vital for their primary role: reconnaissance, gathering intel behind enemy lines. Imagine being inside a rickety biplane, the wind whipping through the gaps in your cockpit, the ground falling away below you. Your mission: observe the enemy and return with valuable information. It was dangerous, exhilarating work. As the 1910s unfolded, flight took on a new role. Entertainment, aviators performed stunts at county fairs. Air shows attracted massive crowds. Looping, diving, and figure eights became as thrilling as any circus act. These were bombers, designed to carry heavy payloads deep into enemy territory. Picture this: a heavily armed bomber flying over enemy territory. The crew tense as they release their payload, knowing that flak and interceptors are waiting for them. It was a nerve-wracking task. Women entered the cockpit too. In France, Raymond de la Roche became the world's first licensed female pilot. In the US, Harriet Quimby earned her license and crossed the channel in a lavender flying suit. Flight was no longer a theory. It was a culture, but it was still young, fragile, temperamental, and dangerous. And as the world inched toward war, aircraft would be forced to grow up fast. Though short just a few seconds, aloft it proved that controlled, powered flight was possible without catapults or rails. Unlike the Wright's secretive trials, Santos Dumont performed in public. Trenches had become the order of the day, stalemate the norm. By 1914, soldiers slogged through muddy landscapes, cut off from their targets by a complex network of defenses. It was here that aviation's role started to reveal itself. The static battlefronts gave way to aerial duels, opening a new dimension of warfare. The dogfights we remember today were born. Aircraft morphed into nimble hunters and agile interceptors. Trench warfare demanded observation. That meant planes taking on a dual role, dispatching reports back to headquarters and, if equipped, delivering ordnance straight to the enemy. Early aircraft were unsung heroes, charting enemy positions, relaying intelligence, even adjusting artillery fire. Without them, commanders would be blind. For many Europeans, it was the first time they believed human flight was real. The fever spread. In 1909, Frenchman Louis stunned the world by flying across the English Channel in a slender monoplane. He departed from Calais at dawn, landed in Dover to a hero's welcome, and earned a £1,000 prize from the Daily Mail. It wasn't just an aviation milestone, it was proof that borders could be crossed by wings alone. And soon after, hundreds of people around the world claimed to have achieved flight themselves, some with more success than others. Meanwhile, the German state organized aviation clubs and research groups, laying the groundwork for future military and commercial dominance in the air. In Japan, modernization included a fascination with flight. In 1910, Army officer Yoshitoshi Tokugawa made Japan's first successful powered flight. Having trained in France, the Meiji spirit of industrial progress now took to the skies. Italy, too, saw early ascents. Pilots like Julio Gavati dropped bombs from aircraft in 1911, a grim preview of things to come. Giovanni Caproni built multi-engine prototypes, and in the cities, aviators flew before crowds of thousands, their planes roaring above piazzas and opera houses. Once the barrier of gravity was broken, dreamers around the world raced into the sky, each believing they too could master the air. But progress didn't always come easily. There were skeptics, failures, rivalries, and above all, an urgent sense that the sky had room for more. Now, while the Wright Flyer may have made the first flight in 1903, within weeks, word had spread that the barrier of gravity had been broken. In France, flight wasn't just science, it was spectacle. Germany's approach was more scientific, building on the legacy of Otto Lilienthal. Engineers like Hans Grade and August Euler focused on performance and control. In America, recognition came late. After the Wrights' secretive early flights, the US was slow to catch the aviation bug. Next stop, Wings of War. We'll see how World War I turned early aircraft into tools of reconnaissance, combat, and strategy. As the global stage shifted, so did the dynamics of the First World War. But this all changed with one fateful incident in 1912, when French pilot Roland Garros scored the first aerial victory against the Germans. The British were quick to recognize this shift. By the start of the First World War, they had the Royal Flying Corps equipped with planes like the BE-2C. For the Germans, it was a similar story, but aviation's role didn't end there. As the war continued, so did the evolution of aircraft. Bigger planes, like the Gotha G4, entered the scene. And then there were the seaplanes, operating from the water. These aircraft bridged the gap between land and sea forces. As the war intensified, so did the pressure on aircraft and their creators. As the conflict drew to a close, it was clear that aviation had come of age. With the end of hostilities, a new chapter began for aircraft. On September 2nd, 1927, the roar of the crowd at Roosevelt Field in New York was deafening. But aviation was never a solo endeavor. Behind every flight, whether in war or peace, is a story of teams, of engineers, designers. You know what? You're right. I am living the best life. Just cruising along the Riviera in my shiny new flying boat. Life is great when you are one of the world's first millionaires and aviation's most famous pilot. The year is 1927, and the future looks bright. But none of them have anything on Amelia Earhart, because I'm not done yet. But the sport of aviation, it goes on. And now it's personal. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Okay, here's how it went down. After World War II, I flew transport planes for the US government, ferrying war supplies to Europe, My job was dangerous, but I knew my skills were needed and I didn't care. One day, my plane goes down on takeoff and I bail out. Luckily, I survive. But now, I'm grounded, back on solid ground. I watch new heroes soar onto the scene. They are the Tuskegee Airmen, America's first black military pilots. But there's one thing they don't have: experience. And that's where I come in. I train these pilots for their upcoming mission escorting bombers over dangerous skies. They'll need all the help they can get, but I don't stick around to see it happen. I'm busy training hundreds of other pilots myself. I've retired from flying, but I haven't retired from teaching people how to fly. After all, it's in my blood, and there's no better feeling than when your student lands a perfect touchdown. I may be done, but there's one more flight left in me. At least, the men of the Tuskegee Airmen are heading overseas. And once again, the United States finds itself fighting a strange and distant war. This time, it's Korea. The pilots and support personnel of the Tuskegee Airmen arrive and immediately get to work. And when the word goes out to the local communities that they're here, the response is immediate and overwhelming. People from nearby towns come to the base to ask questions, to shake hands, to take photos. They are welcome everywhere, especially in the mess hall. They might be far from home, but the Tuskegee Airmen are making themselves right at home. The mess hall, organized by Captain George Davis, is instantly a sensation. It's the best food around. Thanks to Darva's secret weapon, his mother, Mama Davis, serves up soul food classics like fried chicken, cornbread, collard greens, sweet potato pie, and more. The unit's popularity grows with each plate of food. The men eat well, and the word spreads fast. And it's all thanks to one woman's cooking. The men of the Tuskegee Airmen face discrimination, racism, and danger every day. But that doesn't mean things are easy. But they push through, knowing that they're making history. They log thousands of safe flying hours, shoot down enemy planes, and save countless lives. She's young, talented, and fearless. Just like me, I'll have to wait for my replacement, and her name is Amy Johnson, and she needs a challenge. So I tell her about a little journey I once took with my friend Jim Matador. It went something like this. Jim and I decided to fly from England to Australia in 1930. But I'm anxious to get home, and Amy beats me to the punch. It took us 19 days to make the trip, and we had to refuel 7 times along the way. Amy loves a challenge, and she wants to beat my record, except she's got a bigger dream. When I fly from England to Australia, I only make it halfway before my engine fails. I have to land for repairs and spend a few days waiting for parts. In 1930, she becomes the first pilot to fly solo from England to Australia. I have to admit it. She's pretty special and pretty cool. She's so cool, in fact, that she gets herself a pretty cool plane. The Daisy Itter de Havilland 88. Powerful enough to carry Amy on her greatest adventure. On May 5th, 1941, Amy takes off from England for a world tour. She'll make it all the way to Darwin, Australia, in less than 19 days, breaking my own refueling record in the process. But she won't stop there. See, Amy has a list of challenges she wants to conquer, and she's not afraid of much. She flies the Daisy over the Himalayas, then to Japan, where she breaks her leg in a crash landing. Undeterred, she returns to England with a cast on her leg. She can't fly, so she drives a staff car instead, spending most of her time planning her next moves. But on July 5th, 1941, she takes to the skies again, attempting to fly solo from England to New Zealand. She makes it to Iceland, then over the North Atlantic, but she never makes it to New Zealand. Her plane disappears over the sea and she's never heard from again. And neither is my plane, the Lockheed Vega. She's ready for action. And this time I've got the wind beneath my wings, or at least a parachute in case I fall. I'll need a good start, then it's over the Pacific. My team and I are itching for a challenge, and we get it in the form of another smuggler, Wiley Post. He's got a new plane, the Travel Air, and he wants to beat my transatlantic record. I'll give him a hint. Try flying around the globe, and that's exactly what he does. But while Post circles the globe in a then record 30 hours, the newspapers, they're all about me. On May 1932, I take off from Oakland, California for Honolulu. After 41 hours of flight, I land back in Oakland. The crowds go wild. Adoring fans swarm my plane. Cameras flash. Reporters shove microphones in my face. This is my moment, but it won't be my last. Newspapers tell me I've conquered the world, that I could fly anywhere, anytime, and I believe them until I can't. But across the Atlantic, another pilot is making plans that will darken my future and change aviation forever. Charles Lindbergh won't be the last person to make a record-breaking flight. I won't be the last celebrity pilot, and aviation's golden age is just beginning. This is Wings of War. How World War I transformed flight forever. Part 2, Between Wars and Across Oceans. The Great War had been a catastrophe on a scale never before imagined. It had ripped families apart and left entire generations dead. In the aftermath, everyone wanted to look forward. America soared into the lead, with almost 30,000 aircraft produced during the war. The US had 5 times the industry capacity of its European rivals, and the rest of the world wanted to copy that success. Commercial passenger flights began, and soon the Wright brothers' rickety flyer had become an iconic symbol of freedom, beauty, and adventure. Travel writers wax poetic about soaring through the clouds. Lucky Lindy. Travel writers also wax poetic about me. My record-setting flights helped launch a golden age of aviation. Newspapers follow my every move. Movie deals, endorsements, and admirers await. But Lindy's got something I don't. Ambition, he smoulders with a restless energy. The itch to fly solo across the Atlantic doesn't hit me till 1926, after I survive a bad crash. And even then, people think I'm mad, but the seed is planted. And when a wealthy industrialist offers to sponsor a transatlantic flight, I'm the first in line. We'll call it the Spirit of St. Louis. It'll be a modern chariot racing across the sky, a race against the elements and against the clock. If I can beat the record by just a few hours, I'll win a $10,000 prize. That's a lot of money, and if I lose, well, who cares? There's always next year. It's easy enough, said. Lindbergh takes off from Roosevelt Field in New York on May 20th, 1927. He'll fly straight into the record books, taking 33.5 hours to cover 5,800 kilometers. For a while, it looks like my moment has passed. Maybe I'm getting too old for this game. A day later, Lindy lands near Paris to cheers fit for a conquering hero. The Eiffel Tower lights flash messages of congratulations. A ticker-tape parade awaits in New York. But I'm still angry enough to write a letter to the editor. The reckless aviator has set a dangerous precedent. Now, every other thrill-seeker will want to join him. Maybe they should have listened to me. The late 1920s see dozens of attempts to match or beat Lindbergh's feat. 5 aviators will die trying. It's 1935, and my health is failing. Years of injuries and crashes have taken their toll. It's time to hang up my wings. Amy's gone, which means it's my turn to disappear. When the war is over, we can finally begin the work of healing, and that includes healing the wounds of war. Next up is Aces High. Hello and welcome to this channel. Now let's get to the next episode about the golden age of aviation. If you enjoy this episode, Please like the video and subscribe for more. Also, be sure to follow us on social media for additional content. Today's episode is called Between Wars and Across Oceans: The Rise of Celebrity Pilots and Long-Distance Dreams. After the guns fell silent in 1918, flight soared into its next chapter, not as a weapon, but as a wonder. Between the two world wars, aviation matured rapidly. Pilots became global celebrities. Aircraft pushed the boundaries of range, altitude, and national pride. Personal ambition and public imagination all converged to make these decades the most romantic and daring in flight history. The end of World War I left thousands of pilots out of a job, but full of experience. Many turned to barnstorming, flying exhibitions and air shows. They wowed crowds with death-defying stunts. Loops, dives, wing walking. The biplane became entertainment. But underneath the spectacle, ambition stirred. Flight now served peacetime goals. Governments began funding airmail routes to prove the reliability of aircraft. In the United States, brave pilots flew fragile mail planes across foggy mountain passes with no instruments. Charles Lindbergh rose from these ranks. Flying mail between St. Louis and Chicago, he learned the lonely rhythm of long-distance flight, the hypnotic drone of the engine, the endless panorama of fields and rivers. And then one day in 1927, the spirit of St. Louis took to the sky, carrying Lindbergh toward his destiny. The young pilot had already become a household name, thanks to newspaper columns written by his famous father. His mother had been an early campaigner for women's right to vote, and both parents hoped their son would follow in their footsteps and enter politics. But Charles wanted to fly. With his mum's blessing, he saved up for flight lessons and was soon flying a Kinner Airstair. He progressed quickly, working as a pilot and mechanic to pay for it, eventually earning enough to buy his own plane, a Ryan M2. Using the plane to barnstorm, he met another future legend, Wiley Post, who was performing aerial stunts. After serving as a fighter pilot in the war, together they set a transcontinental flight record, flying from New York to San Francisco in just 19 hours. But Lindbergh wasn't done. He wanted to cross the Atlantic. No one had ever flown across the ocean alone. It seemed impossible, but Lindbergh believed in his heart that he could do it. Newspapers touted the feat as the ultimate test of man against machine and man against nature. Lindbergh himself saw it as simply a new route to an old destination. When he landed in Paris, ticker tape reigned. For 40 days, crowds gathered outside Roosevelt Field to watch him come home. People hung out their laundry to dry on his path, so they would miss a chance to see him. As he passed overhead, the public's faith in aviation soared. Women soared in 1928. Just a year after Lindbergh's flight, Amelia Earhart crossed the Atlantic solo, becoming the first woman to do so. But she was much more than a footnote to Lindbergh's headline. While he became a celebrity, she was a trailblazer. During her career, she set dozens of records, flew the first solo from Hawaii to California, and wrote several books. But she was also a tireless advocate for female pilots and equal opportunities, helping found the 99s, an organization for female pilots. In 1932, Earhart became the first person to fly solo from Honolulu to Oakland, California, covering 2,400 miles in under 19 hours. Her Lockheed Vega 5B was nicknamed the Electra. 2 years later, she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, disappeared over the Pacific while attempting to circumnavigate the globe. Their fate remains a mystery. But Earhart's impact soars on. Back in Europe, German pilot Hans von Karman set a world distance record in 1928, flying non-stop for 36 hours in a Heinkel HD-36. This caught the attention of Britain's Daily Mail newspaper, which offered a prize for the first pilot to fly 2,000 miles without stopping. 5 years later, that prize went to another American, the aptly named Jimmy. He covered 29 miles in a single Lockheed Vega 5B from Oakland, California to Manila in the Philippines. But these long-distance flights were not only about glory or prizes, they spurred technological leaps. Planes gained enclosed cabins, retractable landing gear, radios, and stronger engines. Navigation transformed too. Celestial sextants, radio direction finders, and autopilots aided pilots. As aircraft grew bigger and more capable, so did their ambitions. In 1931, Post returned the Ryan M2 he learned to fly with. Now equipped with a turbo supercharger, he completed a circumglobal flight in just 30 hours, 19 minutes and 21 seconds, lapping the globe at nearly 400 miles per hour. He made 3 stops for fuel, but still holds the record for the fastest solo flight around the world. Following Post's feat, commercial airlines blossomed. Imperial Airways connected Britain to its farthest colony. Lufthansa, KLM, Pan Am, and Aeropostale stretched their networks across deserts and seas. Air travel remained expensive and exclusive, but it had arrived. The world began to shrink. The most ambitious project undertaken by any nation was the construction of the Hindenburg, a massive passenger airship with a cruising speed of 70 miles an hour and the ability to carry up to 12 passengers and 6 crew members. It first flew in 1936 and toured the world before heading to the United States. On May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg caught fire while trying to land in New Jersey, killing 35 of the 97 people on board. Despite the tragedy, passenger airships continued to be built, including the massive British R-100 and the Italian SS Norga, which flew from Italy to the United States in just 48 hours. But the Hindenburg disaster effectively ended commercial airship travel. The last passenger airship didn't fly until 1959. Throughout this period, multiple planes competed for speed records. In 1935, Howard Hughes won a $10,000 bet by flying a twin-engine Horton Brothers H-1 from Los Angeles to New York in under 19 hours. He did it in 15 hours and 19 minutes. Then Hughes set his sights on breaking the 24-hour world record. The goal was to stay aloft as long as possible, not necessarily to cover the longest distance. To accomplish this, Hughes modified a twin-engine Lockheed L-1049 Constellation. The plane, dubbed the Spruce Goose, weighed 40 tons, had a wingspan of 105 feet, and was powered by 4 massive radial engines. Hughes wanted to keep the plane airborne for 25 hours. But after spending 30 hours in the air, the Spruce Goose landed back in Brooklyn, New York, setting a world record for the longest flight. It never flew again. Hughes died in 1976. The Spruce Goose was dismantled and scrapped in 1979. But other projects captured the imagination of engineers and the public alike. Britain's Black & Decker company produced a line of small electric planes in the late 1930s, designed by Alfred P. Roe. The planes were built to look like large model airplanes and were intended to be simple to operate. But there was a problem. The planes lacked power and were difficult to control, resulting in a number of accidents. One of the most ambitious projects came from North American Aviation. The company designed a plane with a huge cabin and unprecedented range, codenamed the X. It was planned to have 4 engines and a cruising speed of 300 miles per hour, plus the ability to carry 30 passengers in luxury. The US government loved the plan and ordered 5 prototypes. The first flight was conducted in 1939. But when the US entered World War II, the government repurposed the design turning the NA-64 into the B-25 bomber. In the skies above Europe, fighter planes reached incredible speeds, climbing over 40,000 feet into the air. The British Hawker Hurricane and Supermarine Spitfire, and the Germans Messerschmitt Bf 109 and Focke-Wulf 190 dueled over the continent. These planes weren't built for racing, but they shattered records. In August 1941, a group of British pilots tested the Rolls-Royce engine in the Hawker Fury 2. They started their run at half Kenley, climbed to 36,000 feet, and accelerated to 486 miles per hour, shattering the world record for a piston-driven fighter. Soon, jets would streak through the sky, surpassing everything that came before them. But for now, the rumble of radial engines echoed through the skies, carrying the hopes, dreams, and daredevils to dizzying heights and astonishing speeds. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like the video and subscribe for more. Also, be sure to follow us on social media for additional content. On May 14th, 1926, a bright yellow biplane painted a streak across the Ohio sky. It looked like a bumblebee on steroids. The plane glided smoothly, flying so high above the ground that Cleveland, its starting point, appeared minuscule below. This wasn't your average flight. It was the first ever test of a plane powered by a turbo supercharger, or a contraption that used a jet of air to force more air into an engine, increasing power. The contraption, strapped to the bottom of the bright yellow biplane, was attached to the crankshaft of the Liberty L6 engine and driven by its power. The result was nothing short of astonishing. This was a modest attempt at adding speed and altitude to a plane already soaring through the clouds. Little did everyone involved know that this seemingly insignificant advancement would lay the foundation for an era of aviation defined by speed, altitude, and power. The age of the propeller was ending, and the age of the jet was beginning. But how did we get there? The year is 1926. Aviation is still in its infancy, but advancements are being made at a rapid clip. The Wright brothers had taken flight over a quarter of a century ago, and since then, the internal combustion engine has been refined to the point where aircraft can fly continuously for hours. But there's a problem. The planes are maxing out at 450 miles per hour, which is about 700 kilometers per hour. This is thanks to the limitations of propellers, which were the main method of providing thrust to planes. But propellers only work up to a certain point. Any pilot will tell you that the harder you push the throttle, the more your plane accelerates. But that acceleration comes at a price. The pitch of the propeller blades has to increase to match the speed of the wind hitting them. There is a limit to how much you can increase the pitch of the blade without the engine exploding. That limit is around 450 miles per hour or 700 kilometers per hour. So unless you want your engine to blow up, you're not going any faster. As if that weren't bad enough, other problems arise when you try to push a plane past 450 miles per hour. For one thing, the wings of most planes are undesigned to withstand the incredible buffeting and turbulence that occurs at those speeds. The result is a jarring ride for both the plane and its occupants. But even if you can tolerate the turbulence, there's another problem. As the plane approaches 450 miles per hour, the air itself becomes more difficult to manage. The engine performance drops significantly, and the plane becomes increasingly sluggish. It's like trying to push a boulder up a hill with a flat tire. You can do it, but it takes a Herculean effort, and you'll probably end up exhausted and empty-handed. In short, propellers have their limits. They worked well when planes were first invented, but now it's time for something better. Something that can take planes to new heights and break the barriers of speed. Enter the jet engine. There were several people who came close to inventing the jet engine before it finally happened. but credit for the invention of the first practical jet engine is generally given to two men, Frank Whittle of Britain and Hans von Ohain of Germany. Both men came up with their designs independently, although they had no way of knowing what the other was up to. In 1930, Whittle submitted a proposal to the British Air Ministry for a turbojet-powered fighter plane. The engine he proposed was based on the principle of compressing air, heating it, and then releasing it at high velocity to produce thrust. But despite its potential, Whittle's design was rejected by the British Air Ministry, who didn't believe that a jet engine could ever be practical. So Whittle had to spend years refining his design and testing it in secret. Meanwhile, von Ohain was making similar progress in Germany. By 1937, he had developed an engine that was powering the Heinkel E-178, the world's first jet-powered flight. Von Ohain's engine was smaller and less powerful than Whittle's, but it ran more efficiently and produced less vibration. It was clear that the future of aviation lay with the jet engine. World War II gave jets a deadly debut. Germany unleashed the Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first operational jet fighter. It was faster than anything the Allies had, and for a moment it stunned the skies. Britain countered with the Gloucester Meteor. Both were impressive, but too late to change the outcome of the war. Still, the war demonstrated the potential of jet-powered aircraft. They were faster, more powerful, and could fly higher than any piston-driven plane. After the war, the jet took off. Military aircraft transitioned rapidly. Fighters, bombers, reconnaissance planes all embraced jet propulsion. Supersonic speeds followed. On October 14, 1947, Captain Chuck Yeager, an American pilot, broke the sound barrier, hitting a speed of Mach 1.006 in the Bell X-1 rocket plane. This feat forever altered our perception of what was possible in aviation. The modern era of aviation had begun. The development of the jet engine had broken through the barriers that had limited aviation for decades. Now commercial airlines were ready to take advantage. The first jet airliner to enter service was the de Havilland Comet, which began service in 1952. Sleek and fast, the Comet was the first commercial jet plane to carry passengers. However, early problems with the Comet, including several fatal crashes, were caused by a previously unknown phenomenon known as metal fatigue. This occurred when the Comet's fuselage, which was made of a strong but brittle material called aluminum, developed cracks due to the constant stress of takeoff and landing. This ultimately led to the plane's downfall. The de Havilland Company quickly redesigned the Comet, replacing the problematic fuselage with a new one made of stronger, more flexible materials. The new Comet was safer and just as speedy. It was the first jet airliner to successfully enter service. The Comet was a true marvel of engineering, featuring a number of innovations that made it the fastest and most efficient passenger plane of its time. One of its most notable features was its 4 turbojet engines, which were mounted high on the wings to reduce noise and improve efficiency. These engines were controlled by a sophisticated electronic system that allowed for precise control of the plane's speed and altitude. Another innovative feature of the Comet was its wing design. The wings were swept back at an angle of 30 degrees, which reduced drag and allowed the plane to fly faster than any previous commercial airliner. Additionally, the Comet was the first commercial aircraft to feature a pressurized cabin, which allowed passengers to breathe comfortably at high altitudes. This innovation also allowed the Comet to fly higher and avoid the turbulence that often occurs at lower altitudes. Despite its many innovations and advanced technology, the Comet ultimately suffered from a lack of reliability. The early models of the plane were plagued with mechanical problems, and the fatal accidents that resulted from these issues damaged Comet's reputation and made passengers hesitant to fly on it. Despite the challenges it faced, the Comet left a lasting legacy on the aviation industry. for civilian flights. The Boeing 707 was the game changer. It entered service in 1958 and was an instant hit. The 707 transformed long-distance travel from a luxury to a lifestyle. Its sleek, silver body became a familiar sight in the skies, and it was instrumental in shrinking the world and bringing people closer together. One of the standout features of the 707 was its powerful engines. The plane was equipped with 4 turbojet engines that were capable of producing over 36,000 pounds of thrust each. This allowed the 707 to reach a top speed of nearly 600 miles per hour, making it the fastest commercial airliner of its time. Another key feature of the 707 was its spacious cabin. The plane could accommodate up to 210 passengers in a single-aisle layout, making it one of the largest commercial aircraft of its era. The cabin was also pressurized and had large windows that provided passengers with stunning views of the clouds and the world below. Despite its impressive capabilities, the 707 wasn't without its problems. Early models of the plane were prone to vibrations, and some passengers reported experiencing discomfort during flights. Additionally, the plane's engines were known to be noisy, which led to complaints from passengers and crew. Nevertheless, these issues were relatively minor and did not detract from the overall success of the 707. As the world became increasingly interconnected, the demand for faster and more efficient aircraft grew. By the 1960s, the Boeing 707 had become the workhorse of commercial aviation, transporting millions of passengers around the globe every year. It was instrumental in opening up new routes and making travel more affordable for the average person. Today, the 707 remains an iconic symbol of the golden age of aviation, and its impact on the world is undeniable. The rise of the jet age marked a significant shift in global travel and trade. The ability to traverse vast distances in a matter of hours transformed the world into a smaller, more interconnected place. As planes soared through the skies, they carried with them not just passengers and cargo, but also new ideas, cultures, and perspectives. For instance, the jet age enabled countries to establish direct communication links, facilitating diplomatic relations and fostering cultural exchanges. Leaders could now meet face-to-face in a matter of hours instead of relying on lengthy and cumbersome travel routes. Similarly, businesses could expand their reach to new markets, tapping into new customer bases and driving economic growth. The jet age also revolutionized international trade, allowing goods to be shipped quickly and efficiently across continents. This facilitated the growth of global supply chains and made products from around the world accessible to consumers in distant lands. Moreover, the advent of commercial jet travel made it possible for ordinary people to experience the world like never before. People could now afford to take vacations in far-flung destinations and experience different cultures and way of life. This led to a surge in tourism and cultural exchange, as people from different countries came together to explore new places. However, the impact of the jet age was not without its drawbacks. The noise and pollution generated by jet engines became a nuisance in densely populated areas. As airports expanded and flight paths changed, residents living near airports often found themselves subjected to noise pollution from jet takeoffs and landings. Furthermore, the burning of fossil fuels by jet engines released pollutants into the atmosphere, contributing to air pollution and climate change. Despite these challenges, the impact of the jet age on the world has been profound. It has brought countries and people closer together, fostered cultural exchange, and made travel and trade easier than ever before. The jet age has truly transformed our world. The story of aviation is one of speed records, daring pilots, and spectacular crashes, but it's also about the little things: flight meals, reclining seats, It was comfort at 35,000 feet. Airports, once humble local fields, glorified hangars and terminals that were more like train stations. Runways stretched longer, terminals grew massive, and cities redefined themselves by how accessible they were by air. Flying became essential to business, diplomacy and culture. The plane was a chariot for the global elite, and flying high meant you had arrived. Then came the revolution in 1970 with the debut of the Boeing 747, the jumbo jet with 2 decks and seating for hundreds. The 747 brought down the cost of long-distance flying. Airlines like Pan Am, TWA and British Airways could carry more passengers farther than ever before. Queen and David Bowie sang about it. Movies were made about it. The 747 became an icon, a symbol of an era when intercontinental flight was still a novelty, and then it became expected. Meanwhile, regional airliners connected smaller cities, and new short-haul carriers like People Express and Proposition Airlines offered discount fares. Newer aircraft like the DC-10, L-1011, and Airbus A300 pushed comfort and efficiency further. A triple 747 seating almost 600 passengers entered service in 1995. It was a wide-body jetliner designed for high-frequency, short to medium haul routes. But size wasn't everything. In the 1980s and 1990s, deregulation in the US and globalization worldwide invited competition. Budget airlines sprang up. Southwest Ryanair, EasyJet, offering no-frills fares that made air travel democratic. The travel agent was replaced by websites. Tickets dropped in price, and weekend getaways became accessible to millions. The Airbus A320, Boeing 737, and Bombardier CRJ200 became workhorses of the European and American skies. Flying was no longer a luxury. It was a right. As passenger numbers swelled, so did safety and sophistication. Radar, satellite, navigation, and automated landing systems made flight crews, high-tech teams, piloting invisible highways in the sky. New materials made aircraft quieter, cleaner, and smarter. By the 21st century, 90% of the world's population was within an hour's flight of a regional jet. Air miles rewarded frequent flyers, and business class offered lie-flat pods and direct access to the aisle. First class was still a status symbol, but the distinction of flying high was more about price than prestige. And then there was the race to cram more into less space. Premium economy, exit rows, extra legroom, and standing room only. The battle of the boarding zones became a thing. Some services disappeared, like doors on some aircraft. Others endured, like flight attendants, serving drinks on a plane. That was essentially a metal tube hurtling through the air. By the early 2000s, over 3 billion people flew each year, twice as many as in the previous 2 decades. Flying was easy, affordable, and ubiquitous, so much so that few paused to consider its wonders. Most journeys begin and end in anonymous terminals, where thousands of people come and go unseen. And yet, when the plane touches down, it seems almost magical that all those people and all that cargo have been carried safely and swiftly across continents. Nothing quite matches the feeling of watching land disappear beneath wings and reappear across oceans. A shrunken world carried aloft on a wave of kerosene and dreams. For more stories of ordinary people achieving extraordinary things, watch our series on the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, or check out the playlist. On October 14th, 1960, the world watched as a man named Dave McKay climbed into a rocket and blasted off into space. That's right, we said rocket, not plane. You see, this wasn't any ordinary flight. McKay became the first human to ever break the speed of sound without the aid of a rocket booster. He hit a top speed of 29 miles per hour, or 34, 130 kilometers per hour and reached a height of 122.88 kilometers. Unfortunately, his achievement went largely unnoticed. After all, who really cares about breaking the speed of sound when there's a space flight to watch? Yeah, us. How do you feel about that, Dave? It's no surprise that the exploits of early aviators were often overlooked by the public. Back then, airplanes were considered little more than glorified kites, and most people could imagine why anyone would want to risk life and limb just to get up in one. However, as aircraft began to be used more frequently for transportation, people started to take notice of the amazing feats that these machines were capable of. With the introduction of supersonic jets, the public's fascination with speed began to grow. Suddenly, it seemed possible to travel halfway around the world in just a matter of hours. And so it was that the stage was set for a new era in aviation. But now, the real challenge lay ahead. How could they keep up with, or even surpass, the blistering speeds of these incredible machines? The Wright brothers' first flight lasted only 12 seconds and covered a distance of just 120 feet. But within just a few decades, planes were soaring through the skies at over 600 miles per hour. And as technology continued to advance, the question on everyone's mind was, what's next? Could planes one day fly faster than the speed of sound? Before we get going, be sure to hit that like button for more videos of fascinating stories. The first supersonic plane took to the skies on October 14th, 1947. A United States Air Force pilot named Chuck Yeager piloted the Bell X-1 rocket plane to a record-breaking speed of over Mach 2, breaking the sound barrier once and for all. The world watched on as the news spread like wildfire. For the first time, a man was traveling faster than sound. It was an incredible achievement that pushed the boundaries of what was thought to be possible. All aboard the hype train. As the years went by, more and more supersonic planes were developed, each one faster and more advanced than the last. The Concorde, a joint Anglo-French project, was the first supersonic passenger jet to enter service in 1969. It could carry up to 100 passengers and flew at twice the speed of sound, making it the fastest commercial aeroplane in history. The Concorde allowed travelers to cross the Atlantic Ocean in just 3.5 hours, cutting travel time in half. But that was just the beginning. As the race to develop even faster planes continued, the world marveled at the incredible feats of engineering and human ingenuity. Plans were made for hypersonic planes capable of reaching speeds of up to Mach 5. These planes would be able to circumnavigate the globe in less than 3 hours, making travel time truly a thing of the past. But that was just a dream. In reality, supersonic planes remained rare and expensive to operate. Sonic booms and increased fuel consumption limited their use, leaving subsonic jets as the mainstay of commercial aviation. Nevertheless, the pursuit of speed continues, and who knows what the future may hold. There's a lot of pressure to be fast in today's world. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us that we need to do things quickly if we want to be successful. But what if we told you that it doesn't have to be this way? What if we showed you how to slow down and still achieve your goals? Imagine a world where you're not constantly stressed about time, where you can take your time to enjoy the little things in life and still get ahead. It sounds like a dream, but it's possible. Now, back to our story. In the late 1960s, the world was enamored with all things space. The United States and Soviet Union were locked in a battle to claim supremacy, and every new achievement pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. Against this backdrop, two rival superpowers were quietly working on a new frontier supersonic flight. Their goal was nothing short of audacious: to create a commercial airplane that could fly faster than the speed of sound. the French and British teams set to work designing the ultimate supersonic jet. They wanted something sleek and powerful, an airplane that could cut through the sky with ease. After years of hard work and countless setbacks, they finally emerged with a design that met their high standards. It was unlike any other airplane that had come before it. It was called Concorde. The Anglo-French supersonic jet was designed to be the ultimate expression of speed and luxury. With a maximum speed of Mach 2, it could traverse the Atlantic in just 3.5 hours. The interior was just as impressive with plushed seating and attentive service. It was the epitome of high-end air travel. The first Concorde took to the skies on March 2nd, 1969. As it streaked through the heavens, it captured the imagination of the world. Here was an airplane that could do what was previously thought impossible. The public was mesmerized, and the rich and famous were eager to get on board. Soon enough, Concorde became a fixture in the skies. For many, it was more than just a way to get from one place to another. It was a symbol of luxury and speed. The Concorde was more than just an aeroplane. It was a cultural icon. Concorde was a resounding success. People marveled at the speed and luxury it offered, and the experience of flying at supersonic speeds was simply unparalleled. But sadly, the good times didn't last forever. The Concorde was plagued with technical problems that threatened to ground it for good. In 1973, an in-flight fire forced the evacuation of a Concorde, killing one person. This was followed by a series of other incidents which raised concerns about the plane's safety. Public opinion turned against the Concorde, and it was seen as a symbol of excess and danger rather than luxury and glamour. Despite efforts to improve its safety record, Concorde was ultimately retired in 2003 after an air crash that killed 113 people. The end of the Concorde marked the end of an era. It was no longer possible to travel at supersonic speeds, and the world was left wondering what might have been. Supersonic planes may seem like a relic of the past, but they continue to fascinate us. After all, who doesn't love a good speed demon? They represent the ultimate in speed and power, capable of traveling faster than the speed of sound. These planes are truly marvels of engineering, utilizing cutting-edge technology to push the boundaries of what's possible. Some of the most iconic examples of supersonic planes include the F-15 Eagle, the SR-71 Blackbird, and the legendary Concorde, of course. The thrill of watching these planes streak across the sky is something that never gets old. It is a reminder of the incredible feats that humans can accomplish when they set their minds to it. So here's to the supersonic planes. May they always remain a source of fascination and inspiration for generations to come. So there you have it, folks. The supersonic planes that once dominated the skies are now just a thing of the past. But the legacy of these powerful machines lives on in the memories of those who saw them soar. We'll never forget the awe-inspiring sight of these planes streaking through the sky, leaving behind a trail of pure adrenaline. Thanks for watching, and do you not forget to like and share if you want to see more videos like this. Until next time, keep looking up in the sky, because you never know what you might see. In the early 1960s, the US military had a problem. They needed to rescue pilots from behind enemy lines without risking larger aircraft and expensive equipment. So they turned to a man named Stanley Hiller, who'd been tinkering with autogyros for over 20 years. Autogyros, if you don't know, are basically helicopters, but without the complex moving parts. They're simpler, lighter, and cheaper, but they can't hover or fly backwards. Hiller would fix that. Working with the military, he designed a one-man autogyro capable of lifting off from a sled, codenamed the Trojan. This thing could travel light, reaching isolated troops quickly. Then, with its engine-powered fan, it could shift into reverse. The result was a compact vertical takeoff and landing vehicle that could carry troops and supplies deep into enemy territory. It could even operate from small, flat areas. This was a big deal back then. There were no helicopters available that could do all that. But the military had bigger problems, namely Vietnam. So the Trojans sat on the shelf until 1968, when Hiller returned to his dream project. He modified the Trojan to carry 2 people, making it a compact helicopter with just 3 moving parts. No gearbox, no complex controls, no potential points of failure. That same year, Hiller sold the patent to the Japanese manufacturer Kawasaki. Kawasaki recognized the potential, creating a 2-seat version called the OH-6 and a larger 4-seat version. Both were nimble, reliable, and most importantly, cheap. The OH-6 became one of the cheapest helicopters ever built, perfect for training or dangerous missions. By the 1970s, Hiller's invention was used worldwide by militaries, police forces, and medical services. The world finally had an affordable vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. It seems hard to believe now, but there was a time when traditional helicopters weren't everywhere. You know, those iconic whirlybirds that we see every day, buzzing around construction sites and hovering near offshore wind farms? Helicopters have become synonymous with vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL technology. But did you know that they're not the only game in town? Today, there are several exciting contenders for the title of the best VTOL aircraft. Some are trying to reinvent the helicopter, while others are taking an entirely different approach. The truth is that each type of VTOL has its own unique strengths and weaknesses. So let's take a closer look at some of the top performers. First up, we have the Aurora Flight Sciences X-59 Quest. Developed by Aurora Flight Sciences in partnership with NASA, the X-59 Quest is a highly advanced helicopter that aims to set a new standard for speed and efficiency. With its dual contrarotors and unique wing design, the X-59 Quest can achieve speeds of up to 200 miles per hour, making it the fastest helicopter of its size ever built. But that's not all. The X-59 Quest also features an innovative gearbox system that reduces noise and improves performance. The result is a helicopter that flies faster, quieter, and more efficiently than any other helicopter on the market. Another impressive contender is the Sikorsky S-97 Raider, a futuristic-looking helicopter that's being developed by Lockheed Martin's Sikorsky division. The S-97 Raider boasts a coaxial compound rotor system which allows it to take off and land in a smaller footprint, fly faster, and maneuver more quickly. It also features an integrated sensor platform that provides enhanced situational awareness. The S-97 Raider is designed to perform a variety of missions, from troop transport to medical evacuation. Speaking of Sikorsky, another company that has been in the helicopter business for decades, they've unveiled a promising design called the Firefly. It's a small helicopter that's designed for use in urban environments. With its compact size and lightweight design, the Firefly is easy to transport and can operate in confined spaces. It also features an autonomous flight capability, which makes it easier to use for tasks such as package delivery or aerial surveillance. But not all VTOL aircraft are helicopters. Take the Blackfly, for example. Developed by Opener Incorporated, the Blackfly is a VTOL aircraft that looks more like a quadcopter drone than a traditional helicopter. Despite its unconventional appearance, the Blackfly is a highly capable machine that can carry up to 2 people and travel up to 60 miles per hour. What makes the Blackfly truly special is its electric propulsion system, which makes it more environmentally friendly and cost-effective to operate than traditional helicopters. Another interesting contender is the Klein Vision Air Car, a flying car that's actually a helicopter combined with a car. With its 4 wheels and wings, the air car is designed to be driven on roads and flown through the air. It may sound like a far-fetched concept, but the air car has actually been tested and is capable of performing both functions. So which one is the best VTOL aircraft? Well, that's difficult to say because each one has its own unique capabilities and limitations. The Aurora Flight Sciences TX-59 Quests is undoubtedly the fastest and most efficient helicopter on the market, while the Sikorsky S-97 Raider is a highly advanced and versatile performer. The Firefly is a compact and autonomous option for urban environments, and the Blackfly is a game-changing electric VTOL aircraft. Finally, the Klein Vision Air Car is a truly innovative concept that blurs the line between a car and a helicopter. Ultimately, the best V2OL aircraft for you will depend on your specific needs and requirements. However, one thing is certain. The future of VTOL technology is bright. As these companies continue to push the boundaries of what's possible, we can expect to see even more innovative and game-changing designs in the years to come. Now, let's shift our focus to the incredible journey of a famous toy helicopter. It began in a simple garage workshop with a man named Henry. After serving in World War II, Strippo wanted to build something fun. He remembered the joy of flying model airplanes and decided to try something new. Using materials like balsa wood, tissue paper, and rubber bands, he built a tiny helicopter that could spin on its axis. This little contraption was named the Chickicopter after Strippo's daughter. It weighed less than half a pound and had a two-blade rotor made of tissue paper stretched over a balsa wood frame. Strippo experimented with different designs and eventually settled on a helicopter with 4 fins for stability. Each fin had its own tiny rudder that helped control the toy's movement. One day, Strippo took his creation to a local park for a demonstration. People gathered around marveling at the sight of a tiny helicopter hovering and spinning in mid-air. One spectator was particularly impressed, Ed Kay, the owner of a toy company. He saw the potential of Strippo's invention and offered him a deal. Kay would help mass-produce the toy helicopter and share the profits. Stipend agreed, and soon the toy helicopter was being sold to children all over the country. It was a huge success and set the stage for future innovations in toy helicopters. Over the years, toy helicopters have evolved from simple models made of wood and paper to complex radio-controlled machines. They've become more advanced with features like flashing lights, realistic sounds, and the ability to perform stunts and tricks. The legacy of Henry Strippo's original helicopter lives on in the countless children who have been fascinated by these tiny marvels of engineering and in the toy industry as a whole. His invention sparked a love of flight and helicopters in generations of kids. What do you think of the vertical takeoff and landing vehicles discussed in this video? Are they the future of transportation or just a pipe dream? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more updates. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. You have seen the news footage of pilots safely landing an Airbus A320 on a single engine after experiencing multiple system failures, including the loss of all hydraulic power. The pilot simply talks calmly to air traffic control while confidently landing the jet. How is it possible for a pilot to keep calm under such extreme circumstances? Well, that's due to several key reasons. 1. They were flying an Airbus, because Airbus cockpits are designed to be more automated. 2. They were flying a jet, because jets have more powerful engines than propeller-driven aircraft. And 3. They were flying an advanced modern jet, because modern jets have newer, better technology that helps pilots fly the plane with ease. That being said, let's take a look at how smart tech took control of the skies. In the early days of flight, getting off the ground was only half the battle. Once airborne, pilots relied on guesswork, detailed paper maps, and keeping an eye out for visual landmarks. If your name is Amelia Earhart, that is, Well, not exactly a reliable strategy, but Earhart's pioneering solo flight across the Atlantic in 1932 epitomized both the daring and the disorientation of early aviation. As she put it, no one can really know what it is like until he has actually lived through the experience. She also disappeared somewhere over the Pacific Ocean while trying to circumnavigate the globe, highlighting some of the issues associated with navigational instruments of her time. In the pre-satellite era, pilots navigated using a method called dead reckoning, or estimated position from time, speed, and heading. Celestial charts, compasses, and visual cues helped, but there was always an element of uncertainty. Ground-based systems like Vora beacons and ADF signals allowed for triangulation, but coverage was spotty and accuracy limited. Pilots often had to rely on their own intuition and experience to navigate and make landings, but that all changed when satellites began orbiting our planet. The advent of the space age brought a host of benefits to aviation. By the 1960s, satellite navigation offered the potential for near-instantaneous positioning anywhere on Earth. Systems like Omega and Transit provided rough location data and helped ships and aircraft stay on course, but these were military tools, not meant for widespread use. The breakthrough came in the 1970s, with the launch of the first GPS satellite. By 1995, the system was declared fully operational with 24 satellites orbiting Earth. This network enabled precise positioning anywhere on the globe to within a few meters, revolutionizing everything from farming to fishing to, yes, flying airplanes. For the first time, pilots could access the same high-precision positioning previously available only to military craft. Suddenly, dead reckoning became a thing of the past. Pilots no longer had to mentally calculate position, speed, and altitude. They could see it on their screens with GPS accuracy. The impact was profound. Routing became more efficient, saving fuel and reducing travel time. Missed approaches dropped dramatically, and airports could accommodate more traffic. GPS even helped planes fly in lower visibility conditions, increasing safety for pilots. The shift from estimation to exact knowledge brought a sense of security. They could trust numbers instead of intuition. Though, of course, reliance on any single system carries its risks. Autopilots, once crudely leveling the wings, now manage every aspect of flight, from speed to altitude to trajectory. Some can even land the plane autonomously. Of course, pilots monitor, adjust, and intervene as needed, but for much of the flight, software is doing the flying. No rest for the weary. Modern avionics have made flying faster, safer, and more efficient, but it has not been without its growing pains. Early autopilots focused mainly on stability, helping pilots keep wings level and avoid stalling. Today, full flight management systems automate everything from takeoff to landing. They follow flight plans, maintain altitudes, and handle crucial maneuvers, but the real magic happens behind the scenes. Computers process data from various sensors and instruments, making split-second decisions to keep the plane on course. They react faster and more accurately than any human, adjusting for wind, weight, and countless other variables. But what does this mean for the pilot? For one, it means talking less to air traffic control. Data link systems allow planes to receive direct guidance, removing some of the need for verbal instructions from controllers. Text-based communication reduces the risk of miscommunication and allows for more efficient use of bandwidth. But perhaps the biggest change is the evolution of the cockpit itself. Once filled with dozens of blinking dials and gauges, modern cockpits feature glass displays, providing clear, concise information. but it also makes the pilot feel more like a computer jockey and less like a captain of industry. Indeed, modern cockpits are high-tech command centers where humans and machines work together. But that partnership raises questions about pilot training, redundancy, and cybersecurity. What happens if a computer malfunctions or is hacked? These concerns are valid, and serious efforts are made to address them. But the advantages offered by modern avionics are too great to ignore. Still, it's not all about embracing the latest technology. Sometimes going old school can be just as effective. Take the humble VOR, for example. While GPS has largely replaced the VOR, it still has its uses. When flying in remote areas with little or no GPS coverage, the VOR provides a reliable way to navigate. In fact, many small airports still rely on VOR signals for approach and departure guidance. So don't count those old school systems out just yet. Air traffic control, the system that keeps planes in the sky safely, has gone through its own dramatic changes thanks to satellite technology. In the days before automation, air traffic controllers worked with pilots to manually guide planes along airways and around obstacles. This required constant communication and a lot of human intuition. But with the rise of satellite-based tracking systems like a DSB, controllers have a more accurate picture of the airspace at all times. They can track planes in real time and issue more precise instructions. This allows for more efficient routing, reducing delays and improving safety. Additionally, text-based communication via data link allows for more efficient use of bandwidth and reduces the potential for miscommunication. The result is a more streamlined and efficient system that keeps planes in the sky and on track. Navigational technology has also improved dramatically, especially with the advent of satellite imagery and weather forecasting. This gives pilots a clearer picture of the skies ahead, allowing them to plan more efficient routes and avoid inclement weather. Additionally, real-time weather updates from ground-based radars and satellites help pilots stay safe by providing early warnings of storms and other hazards. Even the smallest planes now have access to sophisticated weather information, which was once only available to larger commercial aircraft. And it's not just about avoiding bad weather. Modern navigational systems also allow planes to take advantage of tailwinds and avoid headwinds, which can significantly affect flight times and fuel consumption. By understanding the weather patterns and air currents, pilots can make small adjustments to their flight path that result in big savings. All these advancements have not only made flying easier and safer, but they've also opened up new possibilities. For example, planes can now fly further and faster than ever before, which has led to the development of new routes and destinations. Smaller planes can navigate efficiently, making shorter trips more feasible. In fact, flying has become so accessible that companies like Netflix and Amazon are investing in drone technology to deliver goods quickly and efficiently. Maybe one day we'll all have personal air vehicles that navigate the skies with ease. So, the next time you look up and see a plane soaring overhead, remember that the pilots in the cockpit are not just flying a plane, they're flying a computer. It might seem like a bit of an exaggeration, but with all the advanced avionics and technology that modern planes are equipped with, it's not really that far from the truth. From GPS-guided missiles to AI-powered drones, the future of flight will continue to be shaped by the latest technological advancements. And as these systems become more sophisticated, the role of the pilot will continue to evolve. Whether you're a seasoned aviator or just someone who looks up and dreams of flight, it's hard not to be amazed by the incredible advancements that have made modern aviation possible. So here is to the next generation of pilots and the exciting adventures that await them. We hope you enjoyed learning about the incredible advancements in aviation technology that have made modern flight possible. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And keep looking up and dreaming of flight. For all its marvels, flight hasn't always been gentle. It has faltered, it has failed. In certain moments, it has left silence, where once there was song, but from each heartbreakage twisted fuselage, blackened runway, or unexplained disappearance, aviation has learned, adapted, and become safer. In the early decades of flight, crashes were common and often catastrophic. Structural failure, pilot error, and crude instrumentation left little room for correction. Investigations were informal. Black boxes didn't exist. Lessons were learned slowly, too often by trial and tragedy. A seismic turning point came in the 1950s with the de Havilland Comet, the first commercial jet airliner, dazzled with its speed and comfort. But in 1954, two comets disintegrated mid-flight. Investigations revealed a new phenomenon: metal fatigue, worsened by square windows that concentrated pressure. The planes were grounded. The lesson, painful and precise, was that jets needed new rules. Rounded windows, reinforced airframes, and rigorous testing protocols soon followed. But no amount of reinforcement can fully counter what might go wrong. In 1977, two 747s collided on a foggy runway. One had taken off from the Netherlands. One was headed to the United States. Neither saw the other until it was too late. They collided on a Tenerife runway. 583 people died. It wasn't bad tech, it was bad language. The pilots of one plane asked for clearance to take off. They were cleared. They didn't ask for confirmation. The other plane was on the ground. It didn't tell them it was there. This was the worst crash in aviation history, made worse by the fact that neither plane was supposed to be moving. The disaster transformed how pilots communicate. Cockpit resource management became standard, ensuring everyone from the captain to the cabin crew could speak up. It sounds obvious now, but then it was revolutionary. Today, more than ever, success depends on a team effort. By the 1980s, the industry was in a race against itself. Air Florida Flight 90 plunged into a bridge. 78 people died. Most had survived the crash. But icy weather turned the Potomac River into a deadly trap. Then, in 1985, Japan Airlines Flight 123 lost its tail. 520 people died. It was later found that a faulty repair had weakened the plane. So, despite its age, Flight 123 had passed safety inspections. Both crashes stemmed not from technology failures, but from systemic ones. Weather preparation, human factors, training, and the importance of speaking up became cornerstones of flight safety. Not all crashes have such clear explanations. In 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was flying from Malaysia to China when contact was lost. Searchers scoured the Indian Ocean for months. Very little of the plane has ever been found. It could have been the greatest peacetime mystery since the Mary Celeste, had it not been for one thing. Now standard on every plane, they are built to survive infernos and ocean crashes. They record everything from altitude to conversations between pilots. What they revealed in this case was inconclusive. Some systems appeared to have failed. But why? There was no sign of a struggle, no indication of foul play. The mystery remains, but it changed the industry nonetheless. Calls for real-time tracking, satellite ping monitoring, and longer-duration flight data storage have grown louder. Though the hunt for MH370 ended without definitive answers, the hunt for better safety protocols continues. The world's airlines carry 4.7 billion passengers a year. That works out to roughly 16 million flights. Each one is a victory for an industry that has learned from its defeats. There have been many of those defeats. Over 10,000 people have died in commercial plane crashes. All their stories are heartbreak. All their losses are replaceable. Yet their tragedies haven't been in vain. Take, for example, the DC-10. In 1972, a cargo door flew off its hinges. During a routine flight, the United Airlines DC-10 split apart. 251 people died. A faulty reverse fitting had allowed moisture to corrode the door's support. It might sound like a small detail, but the consequences were massive. Once the door flew off, air pressure caused the plane to break apart. The crash led to new maintenance checks, design changes, and training guidelines for pilots. These upgrades improved the DC-10's safety record so much that it still flies today as a cargo plane. Sometimes even small changes can mean the difference between life and death. In 1990, a windstorm buffeted American Airlines Flight 1420 as it approached Cali, Colombia. Visibility dropped to 0. With seconds to go, the pilots decided to go around. But then the electronic indicators failed. The pilots couldn't see or communicate. They overshot the runway by almost 2,500 feet. 58 people died. This tragedy spurred the creation of enhanced ground proximity warning systems, which alert pilots when they're too low or close to a terrain feature. Since then, the number of fatal approach and departure accidents has fallen by 83%. When the shuttle fleet retired in 2011, it seemed like NASA would leave space travel behind. But after a decade on the sidelines, they're back in the game, working with Boeing to design the next generation of If all goes well, humans will launch from US soil once again. And it won't be alone. A new private space race is underway. Companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin want to make space travel routine. It's an exciting frontier, but for NASA engineers, nothing comes before safety. From escape hatches to heat shields, every system is designed with potential failures in mind. In the space program's own words, they want to fail forward, learning from mistakes, adapting and returning stronger. To date, 20 people have died trying to reach space. That's 22 many, but their loss has pushed boundaries. Take the Apollo missions, for example. Between 1961 and 1972, these daring flights took humans farther than they'd ever been. 6 crews ventured to the moon. 3 walked on its surface. But nearly 1,000 problems were reported. From equipment malfunctions to micrometeorites, astronauts faced constant peril. Each mission honed the spacecraft, refined procedures, and ensured that the next crew would come home safely. Then came the space shuttles. For 30 years, these winged marvels soared into the sky. They conducted research, assembled space stations, and welcomed tourists. They also suffered devastating setbacks. The Challenger explosion in 1986 killed 7 astronauts. An O-ring had failed in the cold. The Columbia disaster in 2003 claimed 3 more. A piece of foam insulation had drifted away and struck the craft. On both occasions, investigations combed through every detail. New safety protocols and engineering solutions followed. They kept the program aloft. And here's the incredible part. In half a century, only 14 people have died on space shuttle missions. That's 1 for every 269 successful flights. To put that in perspective, on average, 100 times more people die in American road accidents each year than in space travel. It's a remarkable record. It's also a work in progress. As for Mars, Elon Musk wants us there within this decade. But NASA says not so fast. Right now, there are plans, prototypes, and lots of research, but no one is sure how to get us there safely. Every journey into the unknown is a leap of faith. Sometimes those leaps end in tragedy, sometimes in triumph. But without the former, there would be no latter. So the next time you take to the friendly skies, remember this. Every mile high, every cloud crossed, every engine hum is a tribute to those who dared to dream of flight and those who paid the price to make it possible. Remember them, not in fear, but in honor. Because in every safe landing today is the echo of a lesson carved from yesterday. If you enjoyed the content, please do share your feedback in the comments. Your support motivates us to keep bringing you more informative and entertaining videos. This is our channel. Hi there. Our planet is stunningly beautiful. From the snow-capped mountains and deep valleys to the lush rainforests and vast oceans, and we love showing it to you through our videos. But did you know that breathtaking landscapes require huge amounts of energy to produce? Take our videos, for instance. Capturing and compressing the data needed to stream them around the world takes lots of computing power, which typically comes from burning fossil fuels. But we're taking steps to reduce our own environmental impact and inspire you to do the same. That's why we're thrilled to have partnered with a company whose mission is to reduce the global carbon footprint of data centers and make digital life sustainable. They achieve this by harnessing the power of nature. Their unique approach involves growing trees, restoring forests and grasslands, protecting natural ecosystems, and investing in innovative solutions that capture carbon dioxide directly from the air. By working with us and other partners, they're re-enabling us to offset the carbon emissions from our videos and empower our audience to make a positive impact too. Now back to the video. Flight transformed civilization, but it also contributed to climate change. As aircraft crisscrossed the globe, they carried not just passengers, but emissions. Now the aviation industry faces a new frontier. Sustainability, engineers, scientists, and airlines are reimagining flight to leave a lighter footprint, while still keeping humanity connected. Each long-haul flight emits tons of carbon dioxide. Jet engines release nitrogen oxides at high altitudes, compounding warming effects. Contrails can trap heat. While aviation accounts for a modest percentage of global emissions, its impact is concentrated and rising. With air travel expected to double in the next 2 decades, action became urgent. One answer arrived in liquid form. Sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, made from waste oils, algae, or agricultural residues. SAF can reduce life cycle emissions by up to 80%. Major airlines like United, Lufthansa, and Qantas are blending SAF into their operations. In 2021, United made history by powering a commercial flight with 100% SAF. Best of all, it works with current aircraft. No retrofits are needed, but supply is limited. Costs are high and scaling up production remains a challenge. Electrification took a different route. Small electric aircraft ideal for short hops and commuter routes are under development by startups like Aviation, Pipistrel, and Heart Aerospace. Quiet, clean, and with fewer moving parts, electric planes promise to decarbonize regional flight. But batteries are heavy, range is limited, and the big jet remains out of reach for now. Hydrogen emerged as another contender. It burns clean and offers more energy per kilogram than batteries. ZeroAvia and Airbus are exploring hydrogen-powered aircraft using combustion engines and fuel cells. But storing hydrogen requires high pressure or cryogenics, and the infrastructure barely exists. Still, for the long term, it may be the best hope for true zero-emission flight. Airports, too, are evolving. Solar panels, electric ground vehicles, LED lighting, smart routing to reduce taxi time, all aimed at reducing the carbon cost of operations. Some hubs like Oslo and San Diego aim for net zero emissions within a decade. Passengers are changing too. Carbon offsets once niche are becoming common. Apps let travelers calculate flight emissions and donate to reforestation or clean energy, direct flights, efficient aircraft and economy seating all reduce one's footprint. Conscious travel is now part of the journey. Tomorrow's skies will be shared by electric jets, hydrogen-powered planes, and yes, some amount of conventional aircraft. It won't be easy. Aviation, like many industries, relies on infrastructure, logistics, and business models that developed over decades. For example, the transition to SAF will require changes to everything from refining processes to certification standards. Electric aircraft will need robust charging networks, and hydrogen planes will demand new fueling stations. But it's already happening. Norway aims to electrify its regional routes by 2030. Chile plans to use green hydrogen to power a domestic jet fleet. And Singapore is testing a hydrogen-powered airplane. These innovations won't just cut emissions, they'll offer economic and social benefits. Regional airlines are often loss leaders, subsidized by national governments because they connect communities but rarely turn a profit. Electrification could change that. All those planes with their noisy, polluting engines can be replaced with silent electric aircraft, improving quality of life and opening new possibilities. Imagine a commuter plane that makes several short hops before returning home, landing silently on an urban rooftop. A battery-powered jet could whisk you from New York to Washington, D.C. in less than an hour without a sound. No more deafening takeoffs or disruptive engine hums. This is the future of quiet flight. And it's not just about the journey. Electric planes open doors for places previously inaccessible by air. Think remote islands or mountainous regions. They can land on short runways, making healthcare, education, and commerce more accessible. Moreover, these aircraft could revolutionize emergency services. Imagine a battery-powered helicopter swooping to the rescue during natural disasters or medical emergencies. Faster response times and greater accessibility equal better outcomes. Of course, challenges remain. Batteries, while improving, are still heavy. Range is limited and winter weather can wreak havoc on performance. There's also the issue of grid capacity. Where do you charge all these planes? And what if a storm knocks out the power? But engineers are undeterred. Companies like aviation are developing breakthrough battery technologies. Pipistrel's Alpha Electra, for instance, boasts a record-setting 750-mile range. An Ampere CEO, Kevin Nautica, predicts commercial aircraft with 1 million miles of range by 2030. So, how does hydrogen fit into this? It might seem like an unlikely candidate. Unlike battery power, hydrogen isn't as straightforward. Combustion engines are well understood and efficient, but they emit carbon dioxide, albeit cleaner burning than conventional jet fuel. Then there are fuel cells, which split hydrogen into electricity and water vapor. They're much cleaner, but currently less efficient. Moreover, storing hydrogen requires high pressure or cryogenic temperatures, adding complexity and expense. Yet hydrogen has its own set of advantages. It offers higher energy density than batteries. For a given weight, you get much more energy from hydrogen, and the infrastructure isn't as daunting as you might think. Hydrogen fueling stations are common in Europe and Asia, thanks to their use in buses, trucks, and cars. The key is finding the right balance between competing technologies. Battery power is ideal for shorter distances and zero-emission operations. Meanwhile, hydrogen excels in long-range flights, where efficiency is paramount. The optimal solution depends on the specific application. Pipistrel's Alpha Centauro, for instance, uses hydrogen to power a combustion engine, offering longer range than pure battery electric aircraft. In the end, no single technology will dominate. Aviation, like many industries, will rely on a mix of solutions tailored to specific needs. And that's not just about the type of aircraft, it's also about how we manage our journeys. We've all experienced the frustration of a flight with empty seats. What if those empty seats were invisible? A startup called Airtailor is using AI to optimize flight bookings. By predicting which seats will remain empty, airlines can dynamically adjust pricing, encouraging bookings and reducing overbook. It's a win-win for both airlines and travelers. Some companies are taking an even bolder step. Air Company, for instance, is creating a marketplace for sustainable aviation fuel. They incentivize consumers to invest in SAF production, allowing everyday people to contribute to greener skies. Other startups, like Atmosphere, enable individuals to purchase carbon offsets, supporting rainforest protection or renewable energy projects. These platforms empower consumers to make a tangible difference. Ultimately, transforming aviation is about more than just innovation. It's about collaboration. Governments, industries, and individuals must unite to tackle this challenge. Consider the Sustainable Aviation Buyers Alliance. This group brings together major airlines, airports, and suppliers committed to increasing the share of sustainable aviation fuel in their operations. Together, they're driving down costs and raising industry standards. So what can you do? Start by educating yourself about your own carbon footprint when it comes to flying. Use apps like Omeo, which calculates the carbon cost of your journey and suggests ways to reduce it. Choose airlines that prioritize sustainability, invest in carbon offset programs, and support startups working on aviation innovation. Every little bit counts. And here's something else you can do. Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for our upcoming stories. You'll be among the first to see them. Because here's the thing, we're all in this together. We depend on each other to drive progress. So join us and let's make a difference together. Sustainability in aviation won't be solved by one breakthrough. It will be a puzzle, many technologies, policies, habits and designs working together. The Wright brothers built aircraft from wood and cloth. Tomorrow's visionaries build from algae and electrons. Because flying clean isn't just about saving fuel, it's about ensuring that future generations can still look up and dream. This book was written because we wanted to share something we discovered while reporting it. Our original idea was that this would be a story about how the pace of technological change in aviation has never been faster. But that's not really what we found. Of course, there are supersonic jets, self-destruct helmets, 3D printed wings and autonomous cargo drones, some of which can carry me, presumably in case they're kind. But while those things are interesting, they're also niche, expensive, and potentially quite far off for reaching mass adoption. What we realized after speaking to hundreds of people around the world was that big, splashy changes weren't necessarily the most important ones. Instead, it was the quiet evolution that mattered most. Small, subtle changes in technology that allow more people to experience flight more often that are making the biggest difference. Changes that democratize the experience of flight without having to wait for a revolution. We found a lot of stories that illustrate this point, but none better than the work of Sebastian Copeland, the photographer whose pictures open this book and accompany this essay. We first met Sebastian at an airport waiting room in Nepal. He had just flown a drone up high in the Himalayas to get incredible aerial views of the region. We got together over dinner in Kathmandu to look through his photographs, and he told us about the project he had been working on for years, photographing vanishing cultures around the world. During our time with him, he shot a drone over the rooftops of the city, swooping low between temples, and that footage became the backdrop for our trip report on Nepal in issue 78 of our magazine. As we watched the images unfold on his laptop, we felt like we were flying ourselves. Later, Back in our home base of Singapore, we looked through thousands of photos from his travels. Images that brought faraway villages and their inhabitants close to us through his lens. We thought long and hard about including them in this book. On one hand, we knew that readers like us would appreciate them, but on the other hand, we wondered if they felt a bit too exotic, almost colonial, in their portrayal of faraway cultures. In the end, we decided they should be part of this book. That's because Sebastian's work embodies the essence of this entire book. He uses technology to bring the very definition of flight to people who might never have dreamed of flying themselves. Through his photos, the residents of remote villages who might never set foot on an airplane get to see their own home from above, floating in the clouds. The idea that more people can experience flight more often is one that resonates with us deeply, because that is what this channel is all about. Hi, we are the co-founders of a media company where we explore the boundaries of flight and push, the envelope of what is possible in the air. We started this platform nearly 10 years ago, and since then we have explored more than 100 different types of aircraft. We have ridden in hot air balloons, soared in gliders, raced in fighter jets, and everything in between. Along the way, we've learned that flight touches almost every part of our lives. Whether it's the farmer using a drone to inspect his crops, or the emergency worker responding to a disaster, or the commuter who relies on an air freight shipment arriving on time. The ways in which flight intersects with daily life are so numerous that it is impossible to think of a world without it. And yet, until recently, only a privileged few could experience the freedom and wonder of soaring through the skies. So we've dedicated our careers to finding, experiencing, and sharing stories about the best and most interesting ways to take to the sky. Whether you're buzzing in a drone or boarding a 747 away, we've created a parallel story to this book, our own history of flight. One that's shaped by both the wonder of aviation and the desire to make it more accessible. For us, that idea of access is tied directly to the role that flight plays in bringing us closer to the world around us. When we were kids, our parents gifted us books about airplanes. We spent hours poring over pictures of enormous jets and propellers, dreaming about someday being pilots. But when we were old enough to start taking flying lessons, we discovered that it wasn't cheap. So instead of signing up right away, we did what any reasonable kids would do. We began working as soon as we could to save up for lessons. That gave us a whole new perspective on what it meant to fly. Not only did it unlock the experience of flight, it forced us to confront financial barriers and discover solutions. It taught us valuable skills like planning, budgeting, communication, and teamwork. In a sense, flight became a metaphor for life. It inspired us to pursue excellence, to overcome obstacles, and to learn from challenges. And we believe that everybody should have that opportunity. That's why we created an educational program that inspires the next generation of pilots, engineers, and entrepreneurs. Over the last decade, our non-profit has provided free STEM education and flight training to more than 20,000 underserved kids around the world. Last year alone, our non-profit supported 150 young people in earning their private pilot licenses. It is incredibly rewarding to see the spark of pure joy on someone's face when they experience flight for the first time. It's especially meaningful when that person is overcoming challenges that we know firsthand. To date, 40% of our non-profit scholars have been women and 60% have come from minority or underrepresented communities. For us, making aviation more accessible isn't about adding more seats on bigger planes or building faster jets. It is about ensuring that nobody is excluded from the experience of flight based on their background or beliefs. Flying yourself or something else through the air gives you a unique perspective on the world. It shows you the curvature of the earth, and the delicate balance of nature that we are all responsible for protecting. It's a humbling experience. As we were writing this book, we thought a lot about how flight has changed the world and how it will continue to evolve. Today, flight has already touched so many aspects of our lives. For example, drones are transforming industries from agriculture to emergency response. With stabilized cameras, GPS, and obstacle avoidance, consumer drones are now in the hands of farmers, photographers, and first responders who monitor crops, survey landslides, and capture weddings from above. There are even drones that can navigate narrow spaces between buildings, opening up new possibilities for delivery and surveillance. Meanwhile, advancements in electric vertical takeoff and landing, or eVTOL craft, are transforming urban air mobility. These battery-powered aircraft could revolutionize short-distance travel, connecting city centers that were previously inaccessible by air. Thanks to innovations like these, flight is no longer reserved for explorers, elites, or soldiers. It's diffused into daily life. The bush pilot delivering medical supplies to remote clinics, the drone operator assisting firefighters battling wildfires, the crop duster ensuring bountiful harvests, the adventurer capturing breathtaking aerial footage, all are part of a new generation of flyers who rely on wings to tackle challenges and explore the world. But perhaps the most exciting aspect of these changes is that they re-put in flight in the hands of more people than ever before. A recent study by Boeing projects that the global pilot population will grow from 150,000 today to more than 35,000 by 2040. And that is not surprising when you consider the growing popularity of recreational flying and the increasing demand for pilots in industries like package, delivery, and air taxi services. In fact, some estimates suggest that the number of recreational pilots worldwide will double in the next 2 decades. But it's not just about the destination. The journey itself is changing. For example, flight schools are becoming more diverse and inclusive, offering scholarships and mentorship programs to underrepresented communities. As a result, the next generation of pilots is likely to reflect the diversity of the societies they serve. But as we write this, we also recognize that challenges remain. Global events like the pandemic and geopolitical tensions have highlighted the fragility of our interconnected world. They've also reinforced the importance of fostering understanding and cooperation among nations. That's why we're excited to partner with an airline on this book. They've long understood the power of flight to connect people and cultures. Their commitment to sustainability and innovation aligns perfectly with our values and our vision for the future of flight. Together, we hope to inspire a new generation of flyers who are not just pilots and engineers, but global citizens who embrace diversity and champion peace. So the next time you find yourself soaring through the skies, whether in a passenger jet or a drone, take a moment to appreciate the journey that brought you there. Remember the pioneers who dared to dream of flight, the innovators who made it possible, and the everyday heroes who keep it safe. And as you look out over the world below, know that you're part of a global community of flyers who are shaping the future of flight. Because the truth is, flight for all doesn't mean everyone flies everywhere, all the time. It means no one is left out of the sky's promise. What comes after wings? The future of human flight began with feathers and dreams. Then came wooden propellers, jet engines, titanium wings, but the story doesn't stop with aircraft as we know them. In labs, hangars, and bold imaginations around the world, flight is morphing into something stranger, smarter, and more intertwined with technology and consciousness than ever before. Pilotless flight may soon be ordinary, not just autopilot, but fully autonomous airliners guided by artificial intelligence that perceives whether communicates with air traffic control, and adapts to emergencies. Machines that learn from millions of hours of flight, data unshaken by fatigue or distraction. Trust will be the final frontier, and perhaps the cockpit of tomorrow will be empty, monitored by humans on the ground. Propulsion itself is poised to shift. Ion drives, already used in deep space probes, offer whisper-quiet, ultra-efficient thrust. They lack the punch for takeoff, but hybrid systems may change that. Meanwhile, quantum physics and magnetic field research push at even bolder horizons. Plasma engines, light sails, and warp theories. The boundary between science fiction and test flight keeps narrowing, and while the future of flight soars into the unknown, there are milestones closer to our immediate horizon. Suborbital flight hints at a future where flight becomes orbital. Imagine boarding a craft in Sydney and landing in London less than an hour later, having arced through space. SpaceX's Starship, Blue Origin's tourism capsules, and Virgin Galactic's sleek arcs suggest this future is closer than we think. It won't be for everyone at first. But then, neither was the airplane. Aircraft are also shedding rigidity. Engineers look to birds and bugs for inspiration, building wings that flex, morph, and adapt to air like living tissue. Smart materials heal themselves, respond to stress, and shift shape mid-flight. The fuselage of the future may not be solid, may breathe and bend. And inside, flying may feel like dreaming. Virtual reality domes, interactive cabins, mood-responsive lighting. The experience becomes immersive, not just mobile. Some concepts propose passengers will lie flat in sleep capsules, waking continents away. Others imagine quiet lounges floating silently over hyperloops. Movement redefined. Finally, the meaning of flight may transform. It once meant escape, power, freedom. But what if it becomes present travel? If AI pilots and electric engines reduce the burden of travel, we may fly for connection, not just efficiency, because maybe the next step in flight isn't altitude or speed but depth, a deeper way to cross the world, guided by empathy as much as by aviation. A century ago, the Wright brothers traded bicycle parts for flight. Today, engineers trade data for lift, drawing upon every bird, plane, and human flight experiment ever conducted. Flight into the future will be the product of this vast accumulation of knowledge, feeling the wind under their wings. Birds have been flying for 145 million years. We started trying to copy them 125,000 years ago with cave paintings of falcons on walls. This enduring fascination has driven us to try and take flight ourselves, pushing us to unravel the secrets of the sky. Every great leap forward in aviation has come from a synthesis of nature's wisdom and human ingenuity. The Wright brothers' detailed study of locust wings led to their first aeroplane. Today, scientists are studying the albatross, whose 11-meter wingspan enables soaring without additional energy expenditure. By understanding these principles, we can design gliders that ride thermal currents indefinitely, potentially offering a glimpse into a future of sustainable flight powered by renewable sources like solar or hydrogen fuel cells. Just as the albatross navigates the boundless ocean, we too can chart a course toward limitless flight. But birds aren't the only creatures we're looking to. Insects offer unique insights as well. Dragonflies, with their rotating wings, achieve mastery over any aerial maneuver. By recreating the delicate balance and instant response of insect wings, we can develop micro-air vehicles that zip through spaces inaccessible to conventional aircraft. These breakthroughs could revolutionize fields like precision agriculture, environmental monitoring, and search and rescue operations. Imagine tiny drones that mimic the agility of a dragonfly, peering into forest canopies to monitor health, or swooping through disaster zones to locate survivors. Just as insects pollinate flowers, we can use nature's smallest to serve humanity's greatest needs. But harnessing the power of insects and birds isn't enough. To understand the intricate dance of flight, we must also unlock the secrets of the sky itself. Unraveling the mysteries of aerodynamics and fluid dynamics allows us to delve into the very essence of movement through the air. Imagine aircraft that respond to turbulence with the grace of a bird of prey, or drones that hover with the precision of a hummingbird. By delving into the heart of flight, we can engineer resilience against the wildest winds. As we peer deeper into the mechanics of flight, we discover the incredible adaptations that allow animals to master the skies. Studying the suction pads that allow tree frogs to cling to branches, or the flexible spines of salamanders that aid in aerial maneuvers provides valuable insights. Applying these learnings can lead to the development of innovative materials and technologies. For instance, we can create lightweight yet robust materials, inspired by the exoskeletons of insects, to build more resilient drones or airplanes. Similarly, understanding the aerodynamic properties of feathers might lead to the development of more efficient and maneuverable aircraft. But our quest to understand flight goes beyond observing nature. It takes us to the edge of human ingenuity. We're pushing the boundaries of possibility, experimenting with unconventional ideas that could redefine the future of flight. One such innovation is the exploration of unconventional aircraft designs, like the flapping wing, airship, or the highly maneuverable. By venturing into the realm of the unconventional, we open doors to groundbreaking advancements. Who knows what hidden potential awaits discovery? Our journey into the future of flight leads us to an unexpected ally in our quest to conquer the skies: mathematics, the language of the universe itself. As we probe deeper into the world of aerodynamics, fluid dynamics, and celestial mechanics, we uncover the hidden patterns and equations that govern flight. By unraveling these mathematical codes, we gain the ability to predict and control the movement of aircraft with unprecedented accuracy. Whether it's designing ultra-efficient wings or navigating complex air traffic patterns, mathematics equips us with the tools to reach new heights. But mathematics isn't just a tool for enhancing existing forms of flight. It's the key to unlocking entirely new ways of soaring through the skies. By applying advanced mathematical concepts like differential geometry and chaos theory, we can explore unconventional propulsion systems and flight trajectories. This could lead to breakthroughs like self-destruct gliders that navigate chaotic airflow, or aircraft that defy gravity. Using innovative propulsion techniques, it's important to recognize that the future of flight will not be shaped solely by mimicking nature or mastering mathematics. It will come from the harmonious fusion of both. By synthesizing the lessons from nature, the precision of mathematics, and the limitless potential of human imagination, will unlock a new era of flight. An era where machines soar through the skies with the grace of birds, guided by the language of the cosmos. The future of flight is a symphony of nature, numbers, and audacious dreams. So let your imagination take flight. Who knows what wonders await us in the boundless expanse above? Because in the end, the true essence of flight lies not just in conquering the skies, but in expanding our understanding of the world and our place within it. Each leap forward in aviation technology brings us closer to unraveling the secrets of the universe. And if you want to dive deeper into the boundless realms of science, tech, engineering, and math, make sure to follow for more updates. Together, let's keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep reaching for the stars, because the future of flight is ours to shape.